Guys, this is like my 5th time attempting to film this and I'm getting really pissed off, but I'm actually very excited deep down to film this video for you guys because I loved planning this video so much. But for context, about 2 weeks ago, maybe less, a follower of mine on Instagram DM'd me and said, can you please recommend some books to me if you get easily bored but really want to read? And I said, wait, hold up, I've had an idea. Should I put up on my Instagram story a place for you to all give prompts, and on my YouTube I will give you books to these prompts? And this person was like, yes, please. So I did that and I got a bunch of prompts, and I actually loved the prompts so much, so we're gonna get straight into it. But what book should I read if I'm on a spiritual journey? Matt Haig books. Matt Haig gets a lot of hate, and I don't know why, because it's really not deserved. I can understand, like, if you read his whole entire like discography of books, that a lot of them are quite similar, I guess, but all you need to read is one of his fictional books and one of his non-fictional books. That is it, to like get his message right from what he's writing. And I suggest this more than any other spiritual self-help book I've ever read, because honestly, he does it the best. Even in his fictional books, they are done the best, because he gets across this like metaphorical view of life, and in such a like not at all patronizing way, which I think happens a lot in like literally all bloody books that are self-help, spiritual, both of them, to be honest, at least from my experience. So I suggest either The Midnight Library, which got a lot of hate, but I don't get why, or Stay Alive. No, I think Midnight Library. I think Midnight Library is much more on theme here. Midnight Library is basically a story about a girl who loses a lot of things. She kind of feels like she's at the end point of her life, even though she's so young, and she gets the chance to live all of these experiences before she dies, and she can choose whether to stay alive or die. So I think a lot of people hated the ending of this book, which I understood. Like, I didn't love the ending either, but I didn't hate it because I understood Matt Haig's point in it. I understood his message in it. So I highly suggest this, because if you're on a spiritual journey, this is like a great way to look at life in a both spiritual and realistic kind of way. And I loved it. So don't listen to anybody else, because just me. Just listen to me. Should you read if you need to heal? The Body Keeps the Score. I really like this book. However, I'm going to say to you, before you read this or pick this up, it's very triggering, because there are a lot of triggering, in-depth, detailed stories in this. And so I think it's worth taking that trigger warning before reading it. Saying that, if you're okay with things like that, The Body Keeps the Score is a book about, it's literally a non-fiction written book by a professional, a therapist. I think he's a therapist, and he talks about how he gave his patients a way out of what they were feeling, their trauma, and in a physical way. And this is what I really loved about this book, because a lot of spiritual self-help books are going to be like, use your mind, do this, do that, and it's so much easier said than done. Do I believe the mind is absolutely powerful? Yes, I do. But I think helping people understand that their trauma is stored physically in their body, and that they can get it out through art and music and yoga and things like that, is just insane. And it's so true. It's so true. And I was so happy that this book was like so big and accepted and understood. So I 100% recommend The Body Keeps the Score. What book should you read if you feel like no one can love the way that you do? Now, I was torn between, do I give you a cheesy romance fictional book, but it will make you believe in love because the love is so pure? Or do I give you a non-fiction book that is about love? And I decided on a non-fiction book about love because I feel like a lot of the cheesy romances I read are going to be predominantly known, right? And they're not always up everybody's street. So I thought I'd give you one that's a little bit different. Conversations on Love. Now, I really like this book. Again, this book got mixed reviews. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. I wouldn't say it's a widely loved, but I also wouldn't say it's widely hated. It's kind of an in-between book. First of all, the cover is stunning. I have it purely for that reason. But it's basically a book where the author talks to a bunch of people and their experiences on love and different types of love, familial love, romantic love, platonic love, all of the above and more. And I think that was why I really liked the book. It was the first time I read a book and I was like, okay, wow, this is really highlighting like every single type of love and not just romance. And I don't remember why people didn't really like it because I read this like 2 years ago, but for me, I really liked it. I just liked the premise of it. I liked the idea of it. And I think like it was powerful listening to other people's experiences in love. And I think it's important to hear other people's experiences in love so you can understand that you are not the only one who loves the way that you do. And that's how I felt reading it. I was like, okay, so I'm not the only one who, loves this deeply or this way. So I think it's really good book for if you really want to feel this way. This one made me laugh. What book should you read if you want to slay? I said, now listen, I think this is not restricted to gender. If you are non-binary, if you are male, you should still 100% read this book, and I'm going to explain why. It's called Period Power. Now, if you're not new here, you will know I'm a very big advocate for speaking on the menstrual cycle. And if you are new here, I have endometriosis and PCOS. So I speak very loud and proudly about ovarian syndromes, periods, all of that. It's something that's affected my every single day life since I was 13. And so I think this book is a must read for everyone. If you want to slay, this is how you're going to slay if you read this book. Not only are you going to understand the science behind your periods, you're also going to learn about things that you don't learn in the school curriculum, like polycystic ovaries and endometriosis. And I think everyone needs this knowledge and this power to understand this, not just if you're female. I mean, 100% if you identify as a female, you 100% need to read this. Even if you don't have periods, you 100% need to read this. But even if you're male, non-binary, whatever you identify as, it's important to know this. Even if you don't have ovaries, because your friends are probably going to have ovaries. You might get married to someone with ovaries. You might have a child that has ovaries. This is an important read. It is very, very good, okay? It educated me more than the school system did on periods. Highly recommend. For example, my partner. He is a medical professional. He knows everything about PCOS and endometriosis. Has that helped our relationship or connection at all ever since we met? 100%. 100%. To be understood by someone on such a deep level has helped me so much. My best friend, she also suffers from it. I have other friends that also suffer from it. Endometriosis and PCOS are not just rare things. They affect 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 people in the whole world, which is a crazy amount of people. But it doesn't just speak on that. It speaks on everything. It speaks on PMDD from what I remember. It speaks on just periods in general. It speaks about the cycle, the menstrual cycle, just every single thing you need to know about is in that book. You do not need to be a medical professional or suffer from those things yourself to read this book and to slay after you read this book. I was so passionate about that. I feel really proud. What book should you read if you can't let go of the past and want to prove everyone wrong? Okay, my book suggestion for this one is a bit weird, but hear me out. It's a romance, but hear me out. It's called One Day by David Nichols. First of all, this book made me cry. I loved it. It was brilliant. 5 stars. The movie also made me cry. You should also watch that. And the reason I suggest this book, and this might be a tiny bit of a spoiler, but not too much of one. The reason I suggest this book is because it spans over a long time. So years, right? And it's kind of like, it gives the message or the moral of let go of the past, move past the past, or how the past will affect you. It shows a deep, profound explanation as to why the past happens. And yes, it's fictional. Yes, it's a romance. But what I took away from it is to not care about the past, to not want to prove everyone wrong. And then in that process, you probably will prove everyone wrong, right? And I think that is what you need. I don't think you need a book that's like, oh, you can girl boss and this is how you show everyone you were right. I think you need a book that's kind of like, actually put these thoughts to rest. And in that way, you do prove everyone wrong. What book to read if you're on a long journey? Now, I took this as you are on like a road trip or you're on a train for like hours, okay? So I went with the Crave series. This is a fantasy series, so I'm sorry if that isn't really your thing. However, it's my thing. The reason I suggested these books is because they are so easy to read. They are absolutely page turning. They are just, the literacy of them are very easy and they're not cringy. I mean, they are a little bit, but in a good way. And I just think they are perfect for if you're on a long journey. Like, you will literally read at least one whole book by the time you finish your long journey. And there are like 4. There's 5. I have to get the 5th one, but there's 4. I tried to get it yesterday and they didn't have it. But anyways, I think like if it's on a really, really, really long journey, like if you're on a plane, you can bring 2 of the books with you. And if you finish one, you've got the second one right there. Like, that's how easy it is to read them, and they're so entertaining. So I think those are amazing suggestions for if you're on a long journey. Someone said, what book should you read if you are waiting for a class to start? Now, I have a strategic reason for giving this answer. I said Stoner by John Williams. Very recently, I read this book, and I think in my recent like December favorites, I don't know if I said this. I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did. If I didn't, it was because I filmed it before I finished this book. Stoner is the most beautiful book I think I've ever read in my life. Truly such a stunning book. And the reason I say to read it before a class starts is because if you like it the way that I like it, then what you should do is you should read a bit before class, get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I need to know what happens next. So that in your next lesson, it goes so quick because you are just eagerly waiting to pick that book right back up again. Or your lesson might go slower because you are eagerly waiting to pick that book back up again. But either way, like, that was my strategic, like, it's not a book that's like, oh, easy to read before class. I think it's just a really good book. And it also is set in a educational atmosphere, so I felt like it was very on theme. But also my strategy was you'll read it and you'll look forward to reading it later, so your lesson will kind of, you're like, oh my God, let's get this over and done with so I can get back to the book. That might not be that smart. I thought it was really smart, but anyway. Okay, someone said, what book should you read if you are trying to get cozy at home? Easy. The first book I read of 2022, The Love Hypothesis. Listen, even if you don't like romances, this romance is beautiful. It's easy, it's cozy, it's sweet. I read it in one singular day. I loved it. I was cozy. I was drinking my tea. I was wrapped up. I was reading it and I finished it in a day. That is how stunning this book was. Listen, people don't like it because it's very Wattpad-y, but to me it was Wattpad-y in the best way possible. Like, it had all the tropes that you would want in a romance. And I think if you're trying to get cozy and like drink tea and like I'm so passionate about this subject, and like wrap up warm, This is a perfect book. You feel like you're with them along the journey. By the time you finish this book, you're going to be crying because you're like, no, I'm letting go of my best friends. But only if you read it in a day. See what I mean? Smart. Okay, someone said, what book to read if you love mysteries and sci-fi films? Listen, this one I was so stuck on because I don't really read sci-fi books. I read loads of fantasy, but I don't really read sci-fi. I do read a couple mysteries, but they are more so like crime mysteries, things like that. So I thought, what is like perfect mystery / sci-fi? And I remembered a book that I listened to the whole audiobook series of like almost 3 years ago. Deluxe series. Like Crave, the Crave series, both of these books, this is so embarrassing, I've said this last time, I found by playing this almost episode like game, and you can play through the book. They didn't have all the other books for either of them. They only had the first book for both. But I became addicted to these books, so I was like, I need to either find the real hardback books of these, or I need to get the audiobooks. So what do? I find the audiobooks of the Deluxe series. There's like 8 books as well, from what I remember at least. I might be over exaggerating, but either way. My hair looks so bad today, guys. Just please ignore it. It's fine. This is the perfect mix between mystery, sci-fi, and fantasy. And I think this is the most sci-fi kind of book you could say I've read. Perfect. Now listen, I didn't have the experience of physically holding this book and reading it. And you might want that. So you could probably go and find them somewhere. But the audiobooks are literally on YouTube. So I was like, oh my God, I was so happy. I was so content with my life. I was like, oh my God, perfect. And they are just so addictive. So addictive. It's so good. I finished it in like the shortest amount of time. You need to read the series. I haven't spoken about the series enough on this channel, and I will. I promise you I will. In fact, I might even go out of my way to find them physically so I can speak about them even more, because the covers were really ugly. Sorry to the author, your book is amazing. I just hate the covers to them. But the Lux series. Last one. To the person who asked me originally, what should you read if you want to start reading but get easily bored, so it will encourage you to read more? Again, this is a cheesy romance. I'm so sorry. It had to be. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This book was so page-turning, easy to read, and for me, it was like something was continuously happening, but in a good way, like it was perfectly paced. So I think like your best bet, if you get bored easily, is to go into some cheesy romances, because I think like those are written the least like literary. They're more fun, they're more lighthearted, and I think that that's going to kind of capture you to read on. And this book especially is like page turning. So that's my suggestion to you. Once you get into that, you'll kind of be like, oh my God, wait, I love reading. And then you can like expand and go into other books, new books that you like. You know, I went from reading The Fine Print to reading The Picture of Dorian Gray in like 0 seconds. So you'll find it easy. But anyways, I loved making this video. This is like the first time in a long time that I've felt so much passion for making a video, which is kind of silly because it's as easy as my other videos. But I think I just loved like the interaction of this video. So if you liked these suggestions, let me know. If you read these suggestions, let me know. If you need more books, let me know. I will make these all the time if you want me to. But yeah, I love doing this. I hope you guys, this is going to be out by like, I think literally on the 1st or 2nd of January, 1st of January. So happy New Year. I hope you guys have an amazing new year ahead of you. I love you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for interacting with me. It was really fun. Let's do it some more. Go follow me on Instagram, same username, miacaven on everything. So we can do more of this. Please. I really liked it, if you couldn't tell. Okay. I love you. Bye. Mwah.